Greetings, everyone. My name is Lauren Barnes. I am the 22-23 Director of Programming for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team. Welcome to our program, Latinx in Law, how we can increase leadership, mentorship, and sponsorship to advance Hispanic attorneys in the legal profession. We are so excited to have you here with us today. We have such a great discussion planned for you all. This program emphasizes and unpacks the barriers the Hispanic community faces in the legal profession and how to successfully overcome those barriers. We will be discussing the importance of providing career mentorship and advancement opportunities to increase leadership for Hispanic attorneys in the legal profession. This program is sponsored by the YLD Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team. I would like to give a special thank you to our co-sponsors, the Commission on Hispanic Legal Rights and Responsibilities, the Commission on Racial and Ethnic Diversity in the Profession, the Commission on Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity, the Commission on Women in the Profession, the Commission on Disability Rights, and the Coalition on Racial and Ethnic Justice. Moderating the program today is Ann Roberts. Ann serves as the Vice Director of Programming for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team for the ABA Young Lawyers Division. Ann, you may now proceed with the program.
Thank you, Lauren. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our panel. I'm Ian Roberts, and I'm the Vice Director of Programming for the DE&I team for the ABA YLD. We are so pleased to present this panel discussion today, especially during Hispanic Heritage Month. Our discussion today will be followed by an opportunity for the audience to ask questions. So if you do have a question, please type it in the chat, and we will reserve 10 minutes at the end of our program to address them. We are lucky to have such amazing panelists who I will now introduce. I would like to welcome Diana Felipe. Diana is an associate at Millbank LLP, where she is a member of the Global Capital Markets Group. Diana co-chairs her firm's Latinx network and participated in the Hispanic National Bar Association's Latina Leadership Academy. Diana earned her law degree from Rutgers Law School and received her Bachelor of Science from St. John's University. Next, I welcome Larissa Mervin. Larissa is a supervising attorney at Legal Aid of North Carolina, Inc. for pro bono programs. Among Larissa's expansive involvement outside of her law practice, she serves as an ABA delegate for the Mecklenburg County Bar Board of Directors, ABA YLD Scholar, and YLD Liaison to the ABA Commission on Racial and Ethnic Diversity. She also serves as an ABA Family Law Section Fellow. Larissa earned her law degree from Quinnipiac University School of Law and her Bachelor of Arts from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I'd also like to welcome Albertina Abby Webb. Abby is a partner at Hill Wallack LLP, where she practices family law issues and litigation, and also serves as guardian ad litem for children and incapacitated individuals. Among Abby's many avocations outside of her law practice, she is president-elect of the Hispanic Bar Association of New Jersey and serves as co-chair of the Diversity Committee for the New Jersey State Bar Association. Abby earned her law degree from New York Law School and received her Bachelor of Science from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Last, but certainly not least, I welcome Carlos Ortiz. Carlos is a partner at Baker Hostetler, where he is a member of the white-collar litigation and tax practices. Carlos's expansive involvement includes serving as former president of the Hispanic Bar Association of New Jersey and as a captain in the United States Army Judge Advocate General's Court. Prior to private practice, Carlos worked for the Department of Justice Tax Division and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of New Jersey, where he served as deputy and acting chief of the criminal division. Welcome, Diana, Larissa, Abby, and Carlos. Thank you. I'd first like to start off by asking our speakers to briefly tell us a little bit about themselves and what inspired them to go into law. Diana, let's start with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Diana Felipe. I am a third-year associate at Millbank LLP. Like Ian said, I was inspired to go into law during undergrad when I started volunteering for a few organizations that helped immigrants obtain their documents. I'm an immigrant myself, and based on my immigration history, I was intrigued by the field and I changed my major to legal studies during undergrad. I then proceeded to become a legal assistant at Millbank after undergrad, where I learned what big law and transactional law was. And that's where I was intrigued by securities law and has led me to become a capital markets attorney.
Larissa?
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for the introduction. My name is Larissa Mervin. As Ian mentioned, I'm a supervising attorney with Legal Aid of North Carolina. And I did not know I wanted to be a lawyer at first. So my intro to the law was a little different. I actually went to college to become a dancer. I was in the dance program, wanted to do dance performance or dance education. And then about halfway through college, realized as much as I love to dance, I did not want that to be my career. I wasn't enjoying it anymore, and I wasn't fulfilled by it, and I enjoyed it more as a hobby. So I started reflecting upon like other things that I could do, other opportunities, and I really started to think a lot about my childhood, my upbringing, and thought that I could make a difference in public interest law, helping people similar to the communities that I grew up in. So that's why I went to law school, and from there have been in public interest since.
Abby?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here and to share a little bit about my journey. I think it started, my sister Army worked as a secretary at Brooklyn Legal Services. And I used to help out, and I was in awe of what was going on there. That started my trajectory to always be at law firms. That was my employment. I was a legal secretary at a firm I stayed very close with, Hertzfeld and Rubin. They allowed me to grow, to be a paralegal, to do other things. And I kind of said a little cockily, well, if these guys can do it, I can do it. And I was very fortunate to have the support of the leaders at that firm to support me. I worked at 40 Wall Street, and I walked a very long walk over to New York Law School. You know, they say the rest is history, but it's definitely something that I love. And I think it's because I love to serve and I love to help people. Thank you.
And Carlos?
Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me on the panel. And I guess I was the first generation in my family that was born here in the United States. So with that, you know, I was either going to be a lawyer or a doctor. And high school physics took care of the doctor part. There was no way I was going to pass that. So I went on the lawyer path. And fortunately for me, when I got to college, I ended up graduating with a sociology degree. So I could not be a sociologist. So for sure, I had to become a lawyer. Was not the greatest law school student, but fortunately, I really love what I do as an attorney. I've spent 18 years in the government between the Army JAG Corps, was able to get an LLM in tax there. So I'm also a closet tax geek. 5 years at the tax division, 10 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and now 17 years in private practice, mostly big law. And I've been very fortunate that I still love what I do. I like helping folks. I enjoy the work. I get to work with people that I really enjoy, and I've been very, very fortunate. And I think that it's been a great experience. So I've not looked back, and I'm still not looking back. So it's been terrific.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to ask the first question to Larissa. What unique challenges face Latinx individuals who want to become attorneys?
Thanks, Ian. That's such a big question. So there's certainly several challenges that can affect Latinos who want to become attorneys. But one thing that I kind of want to put out there to begin with, just for context, is that we're not like a monolithic group, right? There's so there's so much diversity even within our ethnicity of being Latinos, right? So there's people from all sorts of, countries and geographic areas and with different dialects, different socioeconomic statuses, different generation status, like first generation or multi-generation being in the United States. So there's a lot of various factors that kind of play into the challenges that somebody might face. But what we do know is that one thing that we all face is that we're underrepresented in the legal profession. And so, we make up a certain percentage of the population throughout the country, and we certainly do not make up that percentage in the legal profession. So representation matters, when people are thinking of what careers they want to go into, seeing people who look like them and who may share some of the same, experiences that they share, that makes a difference. And so that's a challenge that we face. We also know that generational wealth is just not the same for a lot of people of Latino heritage, the way it is for potentially some other families. And law school and becoming a lawyer, the bar, all of that, it's expensive. And so we find that people are taking out tons of student loans and, sometimes deciding not to even go forward because of the expense associated with becoming an attorney. So I think those are significant challenges, but there's so many, that we could honestly name. And again, that's gonna look different depending on who we're talking about and what their specific identity is and what their experiences have been.
Thank you. Abby, do you find that Latinx graduates have the same opportunities as other law graduates?
Ian, before I answer your question, when Larissa was talking, I have to just share this. A friend of mine, in talking about implicit bias, which I think is another one of those huge impediments. And because it's implicit, people don't realize that they have it, they don't understand it. And so part of the programming now includes implicit bias training so that people can try and understand what it is. But I had a lawyer friend of mine tell a story. She walked into a courtroom waiting to represent her client, and the other lawyers there said, "Oh, the interpreter's here." And it was really more annoying, I think, for her than eye awakening, because I think it happened to her. I've heard that story before, and it's sad. The little brown girl she's only there because she's part of the help. That's sad. But I think one of the takeaways from that is, you put your big girl panties on, you're still there, you're still professional, you hold your head high, and you make the correction, and you can say, "No, I am so-and-so, I'm an attorney." You shake their hand, you let them know you're not happy about what's going on, especially even if the judge is in the room and there was no correction on that. But just still hold yourself high and understand, as we continue to do that and kick the door, kick the barriers, show up and show out, that hopefully some of these biases people will start paying attention to. Now, your question to me, Ian, was whether or not I thought that graduates have the same opportunities. It's one of those things that, lawyers have to do. Yes, but maybe a little bit of no. And I think overall, yes. I think that the times that are changing now, where everybody wants to talk about diversity and inclusion, almost every law firm has a program. They have a DEI officer, whether they're actually doing the work, walking the walk as they're talking. They all have that. I think a lot of firms are really taking it seriously and embracing it. But I think because of that, I think a lot of the students now graduating, there are more opportunities. They're hearing, where are they hearing this about opportunities? By being members of the bar, joining the Hispanic Bar Association in your state, joining Hispanic National Bar Association, joining the ABA, where they have a diversity and inclusion program that actually is promoting diversity and inclusion. So I think having these memberships, putting yourself out there and joining these organizations gives these students the opportunities more than they would have if they just kind of walked the walk on their own.
Thank you, Abby.
Oh, and I, Ian, I'd like to jump in on
Please.
that as well. Look, I think that I always think about my uncle. You know, like I said, I'm the first generation born here, but my father and his three brothers came here. You know, the traditional, with no father, Washington Heights. And put themselves and did everything. His brothers worked incredibly hard. All were, in the military, saved their money, and my uncle scraped and put himself through Harvard Law after being in the Army, and graduated in 1959. And because he was Puerto Rican, got no job. He could not get into a law firm, could not get anything, and his only option was to put up a shingle. And that's what he did. And he did that, and he developed a tremendous practice and was a leader in the Hispanic Puerto Rican bar community and a leader in Brooklyn and in New York City. And again, there was no option for him other than to do that. And that's what he did. And that's the way it was in 1959. It's very, very different now in the year 2022. And he was incredibly proud when when I was in the Department of Justice, when I became chief of the criminal division, and that was nothing he could ever have dreamed of. And now I'm in big law firms. So it is different now. Now you can get into law firms, but it's what happens after you get there, and what you make of it. Because if you get there and you don't succeed, it doesn't matter. If you get to the U.S. Attorney's Office and you wash out, it's not the same. So it's what you get there and making a difference and succeeding, and that opens up the door for others behind you. And I have believed that my entire life. I believe that when you get into these positions, you have an obligation. And I think about my uncle. You have that obligation to not just get there, but do better, because you're opening up the door behind you. And I know we'll have some questions later on about mentorship and doing that, but you do have that obligation because these are doors that have been opened by folks ahead of us, and we have that obligation to keep that open, and to continue to do that for others, and to do better, so that folks look at us and say, because there is that, oh, he got that job because he's Hispanic. And that I've dealt with that in a lot of my career, and in college and in different things, having been, the only Hispanic in a lot of in college and in high school and a lot of positions I've had. And so you have to show, no, it's not because I'm Hispanic, it's because I'm as good and better. So.
Carlos, I think you opened up the door to another whole program about Puerto Ricans coming out of Brooklyn. I happen to be a Puerto Rican woman coming out of Brooklyn, and it's just a part of the upbringing. But that's a whole nother program. Ian, you're going to have to start working on that one.
All right.
So Puerto Ricans out of Bergen County for me, but I'll come watch your program, man.
And I'm glad that your uncle was able to witness all of your success.
Yeah, he passed away a few years ago, but he got to see a lot of it, and and anyway, he was but I guess that anyway.
Well, Carlos, I'd like to ask about mentorship. Did you have a mentor? Do you serve as one? And if so, how did you find mentors, and how did mentees find you?
Sure. That's well, that goes right into, my first mentor was my uncle, who started out, and he's even in his office. Nothing left his office unless it was perfect, or as close to perfect as it could be. You stayed until you got it, and it was done really, really well. And I learned from him, and look, I wasn't the best law student, and for reasons, but after that, but once I got into the, my third year of law school and got into the Army JAG Corps, then I became, one of the best ones there. I got, an outstanding attorney award at the tax division, because I worked, harder than anybody, and again, I would not consider myself a gunner, one of those guys who looks around and says, I'm going to look around and say I'm staying here later than that person. No, that's nonsense. That's ridiculous. It's you stay here and then you just get the job done because there's a sense of pride and you want to do it well. And I accepted trial assignments because I wanted to do it. And I enjoy it too. Like I said, I enjoy what I do. And then, when you get to a law firm, you watch folks, and my mentors there was one guy in particular, DLA Piper, who was just a great guy. He was never a jerk to associates. He was above the fray, and he just, was, and he did it right, and I watched him and he became my mentor. And there was another guy too, who was just a great lawyer, counselor, JP, and that he became my mentor in a way. And I still keep in touch with him. So you find folks, in those positions, and in big law, it can be difficult, to do that, but you do. And as far as being a mentee, I'm always available. I try to become available to folks, and I try to work also with Hispanic attorneys, because I seek them out. And the person who worked with me for the last 7-8 years was Hispanic, is Hispanic, still remains Hispanic. She's not known. Because I think we have an obligation to try to do that, to try to bring those folks along. And I will tell folks too, out there, that if you have an opportunity to be part of a mentorship program, I would certainly take advantage of that, to do that, and take that seriously too. We formed, when I was president of the Hispanic Bar, we had a mentor program, and I was assigned a couple of mentors, and I reached out to them and they just didn't reach back out. They didn't follow up. And I was literally saying, well, you know what, if you're not going to reach out to me, I'm busy. I've got a life, I've got a family. And if you're not going to take the time, then I am certainly not going to reach back out to you and chase you. So I would encourage you, if you get that chance, do that, because if someone signs up, they want to help, and they will do that. And it's important. Networking. Again, I'll say it again, networking, it matters. These days, that's how you get jobs. That's how you succeed. And nothing is more important than that. And mentors is part of that. So anyway, I went on, I babbled, but I babbled because that's critical. And I'm sure that, Hispanic Bar Association in New Jersey has those programs. My law firm has a mentor program for Hispanics, which is amazing. And I mentor 2 associates right now.
And can I just add to that really quick? I agree with all of that and the value of mentorship. I just wanted to make a note that sometimes your mentors won't be Hispanic, won't be Latino, right? Because I live in a state where there's just not many of us. I'm in North Carolina. I mean, our population is growing for sure, but there was a time where we were even fewer than what we are now. And that's just population as a whole. And then you talk about the legal profession, even fewer. And so I had a lot of other diverse groups of people still mentor me. I had a lot of women of color mentor me, Black women, also some white women in the profession, as well as men of various races and ethnicities, right? And they saw the value in the work that I was doing, and they also saw the value in the diversity. They recognized that there weren't many people like myself. And so they took time and invested in me. And so there's definitely the people out there, the allies that are gonna pull you up and work with you. And I think those people need to be recognized as well. And I think that the relationships that you have with allies are very important.
Can I say that's a great point? I mean, they don't have to be Hispanic, Latinx. My 2 mentors in the law firm were not, because frankly, there were just at DLA Piper, when I joined the firm in New York, there were no Hispanic mentors. There just were not. I was the only Hispanic partner in the New York office at DLA Piper. And they're not. So Larissa, that's a fantastic point. You're just not going to find a lot of Hispanic partners in these law firms. So that's an excellent point you make.
Diana, as a recent law school graduate, what does good mentorship look like to you? And do you have any advice for Latinx students to find a mentor?
So I was fortunate enough to go to school at Rutgers in New Jersey, where it's probably one of the most supportive Latino networks in the country, Latino lawyer networks in the country. And I have plenty of mentors there, and they have kind of paved the way from what I should expect from a mentor. And I think being a good mentor means passing on your knowledge, experience, and opening doors for the next generation, and letting them pave their own path while still being there to support them and give them advice along the way. I heard something on a panel this summer that stuck with me, because I think this is great advice. You should, throughout your career, you should be on the lookout to build your board of directors. And this includes people that are your yes men, people that are always supporting you and say, yes, you should do this, but you should also have people that question your choices. Why are you doing this? What is the point of doing this? While also having people that look like you, that paved the way for you to be there, and still also adding people that don't look like you. And I noticed that I have been building that board of directors for myself throughout my law school career and now my legal career. And I have a lot of those people already like on my court. And I think one of the things law students can do to find those mentors is, like Carlos said, network. Networking is very important. And you also have to remember that a mentoring relationship is not just one way. You also have, it goes both ways. So you have to build that relationship with your mentor. You can't just expect them to reach out to you all the time. You have to attend events they're hosting, speaking arrangements they're doing, support causes they support. Just be present and show them, and send them updates about what you're doing, how your career is going. You have to be present because the mentor can't do that relationship, can't do the full relationship for you.
That's some very helpful advice. Thank you, Diana. Abby, what do you think are the most effective ways to increase the number of Latinx attorneys?
Well, I think one of the ways to start is outreach and knowledge, getting the students' interest peaked. In New Jersey, we have a pipeline program that we have at high schools, and we have at one university now, where we, the attorneys, take time, sometimes once a month, sometimes a little bit more often, to speak to the students, to explain what we do, to talk about our organizations. We bring judges to these mentorship programs, these outreach programs. But I think it's really all about getting people, the outreach, getting people to understand what your organization is about, letting people see what a professional looks like. What does a Hispanic lawyer look like? Are there really Hispanic lawyers? There are really Hispanic judges. Some people don't understand. You get these high school students and they're like in awe of, wow, you really are a lawyer? You drive a nice car? So we want people to understand that you can attain things that you think are really important to you, that there are Hispanics who are state judges and federal judges and municipal judges, and they're smart and they're sought out and they're sought after. So I think, drumming up the interest by putting on these programs for the students, by letting people know and understand that these programs do exist, that there are people who are genuinely interested in advancing Hispanics. Our pipeline programs for the high school students, we teach them about going into the law. We bring in lawyers from different areas and different practice areas so that they can understand and say, wow, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know there was an area dedicated to A, B, C, D, or E. And then we help them with their college applications. We do mentorship in terms of teaching them how to speak, how to come out of their shell, how to debate, how to argue and represent yourself in situations. So there's a lot that goes on, but for me, the most important thing I think is if you have the wherewithal to be a leader, then you should, to give back to your community. I like to say we're paying it forward. But as a student, if you don't know the first place to start, join a local organization. Join Hispanic National Bar. There's offices in every state. And that's how you start making friends. And you come out of your shell where you start connecting with other people. And there's a lot of programs that are available. Not only are there a lot of programs, there's these things we do. We give out scholarships also to students. That's another way to help elevate students. Keep your grades up. Do you have to be 100% A student? I don't know. I mean, I didn't get a straight A. I wasn't a straight A student because life gets in the way. I was a student who went to school after I had 2 children, and I worked full-time as a legal secretary at a law firm, and I would just walk to New York Law School after working full-time all day, and then going home and having to do homework and make lunch boxes for my kids. This is a passion that you have. So join those organizations. There are a significant number of opportunities that are available. Just making one friend. And as Carlos was talking about, your mentor and your mentee relationship, you have to put yourself out there. And if you are fortunate to get a mentor, and a mentor could be a lot of different things. It could be one question. It could be a whole lot of questions. It's really how you make that relationship moving forward. Just participate, put yourself out there, understand sometimes that your mentor might be on trial. They might be crazy busy with what's going on in the office, but you know, I think we always return those emails and the phone calls, so don't get discouraged if you don't get an immediate knee-jerk response. But there are a lot of opportunities by putting yourself out there as a student and joining an organization.
If I may add, I agree with Abby. Joining an organization was very crucial during my law school career. That's how I met a lot of my mentors. And that's also how I received a lot of scholarships throughout law school. And like now as a 3rd-year associate, I am getting LinkedIn invitations from students that have seen me either like at events or just go to Rutgers Law School, and they ask for advice. And that is a great way to reach out to people. No one, like, people are more than ready and willing to give you advice and talk to you about your career. So feel free to go and ask people for help.
What organization did you join, Diana?
So I was part of the Hispanic Bar Association of New Jersey, still am part of it. And I volunteer for the HNBA conventions during law school. I am from New York City and now work in New York City. So I was involved in some of the organizations here in New York as well. I also, in law school, I was the co-president of ALAS, which is the Latino Students Association. Join those organizations. They help. You get invited to different events. You get to participate in different things that you might not otherwise hear about if you don't join those organizations.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Larissa, you were involved in several national and local organizations. What are some helpful national organizations in which Latinx law students could get involved?
Thanks for the question. I feel like Albertina and Diana, they did a great job pretty much going over some of this, right? Some of the ones that I was going to mention, they already mentioned, you know, on a national level, both the Hispanic Bar Association, but also on a local level. But I will tell you, there's also a lot of great work being done in this area and just the area of DE&I in general, and a lot of the, what you would call like mainstream non-affinity bar organizations, right? So the American Bar Association, obviously we're here, you know, through them having this program. Also, I'm a YLD scholar through the American Bar Association. It's geared toward underrepresented groups of attorneys who are interested in leadership. Through that, I've had the opportunity to be a YLD liaison to the Commission on Racial and Ethnic Diversity in the Profession, who was also a co-sponsor of this event. And so there's a lot of great work being done that's not necessarily just through affinity bar groups and organizations, although they obviously do good work as well. And then just on a statewide basis and a local level, you know, I encourage you guys to get involved through that also, because I've done a lot of great work through our North Carolina Bar Association, as well as you mentioned, Ian, earlier, the Mecklenburg County Bar, which is where the county where Charlotte, North Carolina, you know, sits in. And so there's a lot of great work and initiatives being done through those organizations as well. A lot of strategic planning around DE&I. And like Carlos was mentioning earlier, networking is huge, right? Every time you get invited to an event, or even if you don't get invited, you see an event, look it up, Google it, you know, and see that that organization is hosting an event, go introduce yourself, meet people. That's how you get opportunities, and that's how you get connected. And that's how you'll find these mentors, and you'll also be able to participate in a lot of the initiatives that these organizations are doing.
And let me add to that too, if I can. I mean, there's also too, you know, beyond the affinity bar events, there's also, you know, for example, white collar. That's what I do. You know, or tax. You know, there's also the, you know, for example, you know, if you're fortunate enough to get invited to the ABA White Collar Crime Conference, you know, that is a networking bonanza. You know, that's all you know. The criminal tax conference. You know, there's these various conferences that if they're local, or if, for example, you know, if a law firm or a organization is hosting a networking event for that particular field, you know, you get the opportunity to do that. That is a great opportunity. If you're fortunate, you know, you get to work with with a partner, or who is, who you know is going to, you know, has friends who, like, for example, I try to include the associates with whom I work to get to meet the AUSA's former AUSA alumni network from the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, because this way they can meet people, and then they get to know folks in the white collar bar, you know, and then when they host receptions, their law firms, I try to bring them along too, so they can meet folks and establish their network. And look, there's always going to be work to do, and I'm not saying you can't do work, but unless you have a pressing deadline, you know, I've seen folks who go to these conferences and do these things and say, oh, I'm going to be in my room doing work, I'm going to miss all these receptions. And I look at them and say, you know, yeah, that's great, you know, but you're here. This is an opportunity to meet people, and you're missing all of that. You know, you need to meet people. You need to do this. You know, you can sit in your room and, you know, that's not why you're here. You need to do this because these opportunities are not going to be here next week. This conference, this reception is not going to be here. And when you go, yeah, meet your friends and talk to your friends, but go and introduce yourself to people. Don't just stand and, you know, and talk to your friends and, you know, go get a drink. Of course, but meet people. Go out and say, hey, how are you? My name is, you know, Carlos Ortiz, and what do you do? What, you know, hey, yeah, it takes, you know, to do that, but you have to do it, you know, and just say, what do you do? What do you, you know, and ask someone to talk about themselves. Every lawyer loves talking about themselves. So you ask them, what do you do? What do you like to do? What's your favorite concert? What's the first concert you've ever been to? That's one of my favorite icebreakers. What's your favorite movie? You know, everybody loves talking about that stuff. So be a human, you know, too. I think that's important. You know, don't go, well, have you heard about this case? Oh, no one wants to talk about that. It's nonsense. What's your first concert? Everybody loves that.
So last night I had the opportunity to drive a wonderful 2-hour drive to a place called the Rockley for the Bergen County Bar Association President's Gala. And you people saying, you know, Carlos just said lawyers want to talk about themselves, how wonderful I am. I pat myself on the back that I drove 2 hours. That's not the takeaway from this. We talk about at the Hispanic Bar Association as part of our mentor programs, we tell our students, hey, make a business card. They are so cheap to make. And when you go to events, hand them out. And lo and behold, last night, I happened to meet 2 students. And look what I got last night from Wilbert Davis. And it's a card that says Rutgers Law School. And he's a 1L student, and he gave me his email at the Scarlet at Rutgers EDU, and he gave me his LinkedIn comment, and he just wants to put himself out there. I asked him, young man, he said, it's a pleasure to meet you. I understand you're the incoming president of the Hispanic Bar Association. I said, do you have a business card? And he whipped it out, and I was so proud. That's what you students can do. These are so cheap. You just have to carry them. I tell this to my associates here, not just the law students, associates. I sometimes read barring partners. You're going to a bar event, you're going to a CLE. Did you take your business cards? On the back of my phone, I have one of these little plastic things, and it holds my business cards. I always fill this before I leave. I'm gonna say always, we know it's not always, but 99% of the time I fill it and I take it with me. Why? I want to hand out business cards. I don't know where my next big connection's gonna be, where my next client's gonna come from, where my next mentor, my next friend. So when Carlos says, put yourself out there, 100%, but having this business card that you make for yourself, I'm going to email this kid and I'm going to offer him, if you have any questions, if there's anything I can ever do for you, here's my email, reach out to me. But you had to see his smile. He was so proud of himself that when I asked him, do you have a business card? He whipped it out on me. His friend standing next to him, he goes, oh, I forgot my cards. I said, that's okay. This is a lesson. When you go out, when you start, you have to start doing these things by rote. Make it your priority to promote yourself. You are your biggest cheerleader next to maybe your mentor, but it also helps you build confidence. That's what we have. We have confidence. You know, I'm the little brown girl who ate mayonnaise sandwiches. No coconuts, no nothing, mayonnaise.
And I'm sorry, and put your cell phone number on there. I mean, I've talked to lawyers and people say, even partners say, I want to put my cell phone number on there. That's private. I said, oh, so you don't want to be contacted. You don't want a potential client to find you, right? You want them to call somebody else. Put your cell number on there because you do want to be contacted. You can always decline a call and then get, and call back. I have my cell phone number on my contact, on my card, on my bio, everywhere. Because I want to be contacted. I do not want to miss a potential opportunity with a client. It's too competitive. I want to be available. I have on my chambers ranking, Carlos Ortiz is always available to clients. I'm not always available, of course not, but I'm available, and I can always call back but you want to be, you want to be accessible. You want to be available when the opportunity comes.
I'm not going to say all the time. I do family law, I do divorce and custody. And sometimes, people don't realize, sometimes my own clients don't realize and appreciate, I'm allowed to Sunday time. I'm allowed to Saturday time, So, and that's part of the mentorship thing that you guys will figure out. You can't like bombard your mentor and hit them up 7 days a week because they're lawyers. We are busy. We're entitled to a life. We have a family. We get to shut off at some point. And actually, some of the death threats that I get, sometimes I could just push them off and say, okay, whatever. But having the access to me 7 days a week, I'm not so sure I put myself out there like that. I'm just saying.
I just want to add to the point of business cards too, that until you get some made, or if you choose not to, whatever, there's also these new, ones that you can do on your phone. Everybody has a smartphone. And so they have these new business cards. I literally just learned this a couple of weeks ago. You guys, I'm like, sometimes with technology, like, okay, what's happening now? But so apparently you can create a QR code and they can scan it. And when they scan it with their phone, your information will ta-da, pop up on their smartphone. And so now they have you saved and they can put how they met you. And so that's just something that literally will take you 10, 15 minutes to do right after you finish watching this. And you can do that until you get some made.
Even realize the QR code was a thing. That's excellent. Carlos, I'd like to ask you if you ever dealt with or observed imposter syndrome, given the underrepresentation of Latinx lawyers in our profession, and how did you address it? And for those who are unfamiliar with imposter syndrome, the definition is high achievers who are unable to internalize their success and doubt their skills.
Yes, now that I know, what imposter syndrome is, and maybe I've been, living in different. Imposter syndrome is, I guess, a term that was, again, I understanding what it is. Obviously, I've dealt with it. A lot of people have dealt with it, and I guess now, and so I think a lot of folks, have this, and I think if you don't. I think it's good to have some self of doubt, and it makes you sort of work and not take things for granted. And I think that when folks have it, what I would tell folks is if you feel this, you need to come back and realize, I think that, look, you folks, if you're in a position, we were talking about this the other day, and I was on a panel last night at Seton Hall Law School. The fact that you're in your position means you belong, and I guess how you deal with it, there's two ways, right? One is you can deal with it in the sense that I understand that, I have a healthy sense of, I need to make sure that I'm dealing with this issue that maybe I have, and I need to make sure that I'm prepared, and I'm preparing a little bit more so that I'm going to be, like I said, not just be as good, but be better, and make sure that I have that, versus letting it be paralyzing. Because if it paralyzes you so that you can't move forward, that's not going to be helpful. It's just not. And you could talk to folks, but if you're in a position, it's just going to be, you're not going to be able to succeed. And you have to, if it helps to talk to a therapist or talk to somebody, talk to a friend. Everybody has insecurity. Everybody has it, and if somebody tells you, oh, I'm never insecure, I never have a doubt, everybody does, at the highest levels. And it's good to have that, because it keeps you humble, it keeps you working hard, and it keeps you thinking that, I need to always be improving. You can always learn. I tell young lawyers, when you're in a meeting and you're in a big meeting with senior folks, listen, don't feel like you need to just jump in there and make a comment. I had a young associate one time, people there with 20 years of experience, 25, who were talking, and this guy would always feel the need to talk. Said, I just want to be heard. It's like, dude, no one wants to hear you talk. You just, what are you doing? You're extending the meeting by 10 minutes just to, say stuff. I said, I'm in meetings, and sometimes I don't talk. I'll just say, yeah, that makes sense. You don't need to be heard. No one wants your Captain Obvious say something or make a point. He said, well, I just want to be heard. I said, no, so, but I guess, since we're running out of time here, what I would say is, yeah, it's imposter. You're not an imposter. You're here for a good reason. You've made the cut, in that regard. So don't let it paralyze you. It's imposter syndrome is the term, but it's maybe a healthy dose of, you're successful for a reason. You've worked hard, you belong. And if it affects you because you think, well, I'm Hispanic. Yeah, look, I'm going to be honest. People do look at you differently because you're Hispanic, because we're different. We're in a different world, and we're overcoming. And as there's more of us out there, maybe that won't happen as much, right? And you have to find people you trust, and you really have to be careful who you trust to talk about this. I'm going to be brutally honest, because if you go to a partner or you go to somebody who has no idea, they're going to look at you like you're crazy, and that's just the reality of it. So you have to be careful with whom you trust and who you speak to about these issues, because not everybody is understanding. And look, partners and folks, in a law firm or anything, they need to succeed, need to make money, and they don't want to lose their clients. If you come and you say, I couldn't get this done because I was having a panic attack or something like that, and a partner loses work and has a problem with their client, that is going to be a problem. I'm just being honest, because they have to answer to their clients and people, and it's very stressful. It's very competitive, and in every walk of life that you have in law. So, look at it, think about it, and say, okay, if I feel like I'm not succeeding or a weakness in this area, think about what can I do to make myself a little bit stronger? How can I prepare a little more in that area, or talk to a friend? But a healthy sense of insecurity sometimes is okay, because it just makes you prepare a little bit more. But if it's paralyzing, that's something that you may need to go out and talk to somebody about, because a paralyzing sense of insecurity is not helpful. So that may be where that issue comes up a little more. But be careful with whom you talk to about it, because I can tell you, and again, and I try to talk to people. I work with a lot of young associates who I care about, and I try to help. And I've only just heard of it. So I can tell you a lot of my colleagues have probably never heard of it, and may not be understanding. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you,
I
Carlos.
just wanted to add really quick too, like Abby was saying earlier, the more you do it, the more confident you become. So like, when she was talking about networking and just putting yourself out there, Everybody has dealt with it. And like Carlos said, I don't know that we knew what it was called when we were dealing with it, but everybody certainly dealt with insecurities, and whether or not they labeled it imposter syndrome or not, at the time or whatever, everybody has experienced that. But the more you do it, the more confident you become. And I agree with him. It makes you work harder and also a little bit more humble, because the worst thing is like an arrogant, cocky person, right? And like nobody likes that. So nobody wants to be around people like that.
Yeah,
So
and Larissa, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
And certain things you're only going to get better by doing. I mean,
Right. You have to practice the practice of law. You have to practice it. You have to keep
Yeah.
doing it.
yeah, I mean, I was a horrible public speaker when I was in law school. Moot court, my God, I bombed it, and trials, you're not going to be, anybody thinks you're going to go out in their first trial and just be masterful and, waltz around the courtroom and be brilliant. It's out of their minds,
Right.
That's
anybody, regardless of background. Like my first trials make me cringe, thought of them.
Yeah.
So it's true.
Yeah. So it takes time. I've had 21 jury trials. My first one, I was a wreck. It was like, I got to get up and get in front of the jury and do that. My God, now it's, but I still get butterflies. You still get, the first time you look at a jury and you get up there, you look at them and you say, oh, but then you get a little more confident. And then as you get into it, it comes back. But some of these things, you're right, Larissa, you make a great point. You only get better because you do it. And you do it, then you become more comfortable. And it comes with seasoning, and it comes with, it comes with the gray hair. So be mindful that some of this you're gonna be nervous until you do it and do more of it, and then you'll get better, and it'll come with time. But it's okay. It really is, okay to be that way in the beginning.
Thank you, Carlos. And it looks like we're nearing the end of our program, and I do want to allow for some time to answer some questions. So I have one last question, which is actually a question that's in the chat, and I'll ask it to everyone. How does your Hispanic heritage help you be a more effective advocate for your clients?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think being a Hispanic, my Hispanic heritage has helped me become an advocate in my work, because I am able to view things in different perspective than the rest of my team. And both being a Latina, like I'm Hispanic and Latina, but I'm also a woman, it brings different perspectives to the teams. And I work in both domestic and LatAm capital markets, and it's also beneficial in that realm. And it's also does a lot of good when I'm working on pro bono deals. It's very beneficial for pro bono deals because I feel like the clients can relate to me and feel comfortable telling me their stories. Especially like I've worked on pro bono deals with like human trafficking victims or domestic violence victims. And it was extremely beneficial to me on the first capital markets deal that I worked on, because we were representing the government of Peru, and I was the liaison between our company and them, and it was like I was speaking in Spanish and English in emails, and that just became a super beneficial trait to have. And it wasn't just translating, it was explaining to the client things in Spanish and in English that just helped me learn as an associate, as well as make the client feel more comfortable.
I think having a sense of passion, understanding that I think is something that, I would think comes from being from our culture. And I think that has helped me become a better advocate and relate more to our clients and what we do. Having a sense of humor is also very, very important. Being able to relate to people. So I think that has helped. That has helped me tremendously in my career.
To add to that too, I feel like as a Hispanic culture, we are like very hardworking, resilient people, and that is like, you need to have that in the legal field. You need to be a hard worker and be able to get through hard times.
Next to the question, I wrote comments, empathy, service, culture, and work ethic. And I think, for me, it was always the feeling that I walked 2 steps and then I had to fall back 5 steps, so that, I wasn't, I had to just work harder to get there. And I wanted to work hard. I wanted to make my family proud. And I think serving, for me, it was service, to help people. And I guess that's why a lot of the times we donate a lot of the time that we have in our very busy schedules, because we want to help others, lift as we climb. Somebody has said that. And I think that's huge. And I think that's a great takeaway. But also for the students, for them, more importantly, show up and show out. Show up and just, put yourself out there. Nobody's going to laugh at you. Nobody's going to, snub you. You just have to put yourself out there, volunteer. Do it with your heart. Do it without an expectation that you're going to get something handed to you. You don't get things handed to you. You got to work. My volunteers at the Hispanic Bar Association, they work. What do they get? The students that come to our galas, where tickets could be up to $300 a ticket, they get the opportunity to meet federal judges, to meet important people, to meet their potential employer, right? By just showing up and putting yourself out there and being courteous. Making a nice presentation. That's what you get when you show up. So that would be, for me, that would be a great takeaway, something that I've just learned by doing it because I wanted to. This was certainly my passion. I think you have to have the passion to help you figure it out.
I would just add the way that it's, contributed to my practice is all the ways everybody else has already mentioned, being hardworking, work ethic, service. But also community. Community, I think, is huge in our culture. And I think that has tremendously made a huge impact on my career. Again, the networking, meeting people, but even the family, right? Like, we tend to have larger families, be close with our families. And that's helped me in my career. I've got 3 young kids. And, if I didn't have a support system, if I didn't have a village around me, I would not be able to do the things I do. And so that's significant also, the community aspect, both in the personal and professional as you're progressing in your career.
Thank you. And so looking at the questions, Claudia asks, do you find that there is competition in the law in the Latinx Hispanic community? And if so, how have you each dealt with it?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, yeah, look, there's competition. Yeah, there's going to be, I wouldn't say it's limited to the Latinx community. I'd say it's across the board. There's a lot of lawyers. There's a lot of people who do what we do. And you're going to find competition. And, and how you deal with it is, pretty much how you deal with just things as a person. Like I said before, you can be, I really can't stand people who are, like I said, the gunners, the people who look around. And look, you have to promote you have to be able to promote yourself and take care, because if you don't do it, if you're not going to succeed. But you do it, and you can be confident, not arrogant, and there's a difference, right? I mean, you have to be. Look, what I do, for every job, every white collar opportunity that I look for, there's 25 law firms who could want the same thing, and I have to distinguish myself. I have to explain why would they want to hire me, and if I don't, I'm going to sit at home and no one's going to hire me. So I have to always, I would say nowadays I probably spend 50% of my time, maybe more, 60% of my time marketing, and trying to get work that I could give work to associates and help people out. And fortunately, I like that. It's okay. And collecting is not so much fun. But it's it's what you do, and it's the legal profession is changing, and you have to start thinking that way to succeed. And so it's something that you develop, and you have mentors, and you have to learn depending upon what you want to do. So there's competition. I wouldn't say, and look, I mean, but you also want to help. Recently I was talking to a potential client, and the guy was talking to me. And it was for a complex criminal tax case. And he said, I'm talking to the lawyers. And I said, well, I'm assuming you're talking to, if you're talking, and look, the guy was a decent guy, and I felt horribly for him because he's in a horrible position. And, and I said, well, I'm assuming you're talking to A, B, and C, as well, because, and I know A, B, and C, we're friends, they're good guys and they're good lawyers. And then he said, oh, I have not talked to A, B, and C. And I was like, damn it, and then he ended up hiring B, and I was like, damn it, what the heck, I killed myself there. And then B calls me, we're good friends, we refer, and that's the way it works. It's a round world, and especially in the white collar part of New Jersey, we tend to treat each other, decently. Your reputation means everything. And it does. Your reputation means more than one gig. It really, really does. And you never, you don't badmouth another lawyer. You don't, and look, you can be angry people. This came up last night. If people tried to screw you, yeah, there are bad actors out there. There are people who do it. And you never send an email in anger. We talked about that last night in this panel. If, and trust me, there are times you're going to want to do it. And just don't, hold it, have somebody look at it. Don't. But there's going to be competition, and you just have to. This guy called me, and I jokingly called him. Yeah. And we swore at each other a little bit. Good time. And we're going to dinner. And then actually, the wife needed representation, and I got hired. And I told the client, now you're paying me double. But there's out there, and you just have to deal with it. And your and if people like you and you're a decent person, you'll do well. But the other more important thing is your craft. You have to be a good lawyer. You have to be an excellent lawyer. You're not going to make it by by thinking, oh, I'm just going to go out and market myself and think I'm this thing and talk my way anyway. No matter what, this comes back to mentorship and everything else. You have to be an excellent lawyer. And that's the thing. You have to get out there, work on your own. Something new comes up. You have to understand it. You have to know it. Because people need to look at you and say, like you, Diana Felipe, she's an excellent lawyer. They can't look at her and say, well, she's Latina, she's Latinx. No, she's an excellent lawyer who is also, a Latinx lawyer, but she's an excellent lawyer, and that's why they're going to hire her. Abby Webb is an excellent lawyer. Larissa Melvin is an excellent lawyer. That's the first thing. And then you're Latin. So that's how you have to be known, right? And then the rest of it comes. And we're all excellent lawyers, and that's where you start. And then competition takes care of itself. Sorry about that.
No, thank you. That was great. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for attending our program. We hope that you found it both helpful and engaging. And many, many thanks to our fantastic panel who truly made this program a huge success. I can't thank you all enough.